Take a deep breath, take the higher road. That's what they always say, as if they know the way. They won't take it from me. But don't ever doubt yourself, cause life ain't just a dream. You made your own, so kick and scream. The people will act with a never-ending force. You never had the chance, so what you waiting for? The day has come, my friend, cause this is war. It's time and this is war.
There are moments in history that test not only our systems, but our souls. Moments when truth itself becomes the casualty of convenience. When those sworn to protect humanity trade integrity for influence, and the very science we were told to trust becomes the weapon used against us. Over the past 5 years, we've lived through one of those moments. A global experiment disguised as a public health campaign. Rolled out in haste, shielded from accountability, and sustained by censorship. But now the data is beginning to speak. And once the truth begins to whisper, no amount of propaganda can silence it. Today we stand in the aftermath, in the reckoning. And it's here, in this uncomfortable place, that real science begins again. Because true science has always been about asking the hard questions, not silencing those who dare to ask them. My guest today is one of those brave scientists who never stopped questioning. He's a man of integrity, of evidence, and of heart. And his contributions may very well redefine how history remembers this chapter in modern medicine. You're listening to Nurses Out Loud on America Out Loud Talk Radio. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton. Before we get started today, I do want to encourage our listeners, if you have questions or comments, or perhaps you want to share your own experiences with what you're seeing on the front lines of healthcare, you can now submit those to us directly by visiting our website at nursesoutloud.com. We would love to hear from you. We encourage all of you to engage in the battle and find your voice in this fight. But until you are able to do that, we will continue to be that voice for you. Dr. Mark Nathaniel Mead is a public health research scientist and McCullough Foundation scholar. Since the late 1990s, he has authored over 55 peer-reviewed scientific papers, contributed to numerous books, and served as an editor for 2 peer-reviewed journals. His extensive background in environmental and integrative medicine led him to become a leading voice in exposing data integrity issues surrounding the COVID-19 response. Dr. Mead is also the lead author on several peer-reviewed papers examining the mRNA vaccines, co-authored with Drs. Peter McCullough, Stephanie Seneff, Jessica Rose, Paul Marik, William Makis, and other notable scientists. His latest endeavor, the COVID Index, an initiative of Children's Health Defense, is a groundbreaking framework designed to track the global health and societal impacts of the pandemic and the policies that shaped it. Dr. Mead, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
I appreciate you being here. And, before we dive into the COVID Index, I'd really love for my listeners to just hear a little bit about your journey. What drew you into public health research and how your path intersected with some of these leading voices in the movement for medical truth?
Well, I've been on a path of sort of an unorthodox path for the past 30 years. I got my doctoral training in nutritional epidemiology at UNC School of Public Health. And at that time, I was also doing a lot of science writing. And I was invited to write some books on cancer. I ended up getting involved in some major cancer research projects. And I started to see the corruption of the medical system and the medical pharmaceutical complex, or what Dr. McCullough calls the biopharmaceutical complex, which is this massive interweaving of pharmaceutical companies and special interest groups and government agencies and media. And I started to see that early on. Many of the systems that were in place to take care of people with cancer were very dysfunctional. And that made me very skeptical about a lot of aspects of not only medical care, but the research and education that was being used to guide public health policies. And so when the COVID situation arrived in 2020, I was pretty much tuned into a lot of the shenanigans that we have seen over the past 5 years with people in places of a lot of influence, like in government agencies, telling the public one thing and then the science actually showing something very different. So that's how I kind of got into this whole area, and yeah, it's been quite a journey. My author's name is Nathaniel Mead. I have a Master of Science and a PhD, and I continue to be very active in writing peer-reviewed papers. Um, and I must say, I'm really honored to be working with the McCullough Foundation. Dr. McCullough is a real hero and inspiration to me. So I'm glad to be here on your show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Dr. McCullough is amazing. He is definitely a hero to me, and all everything he's done to support our work. But he actually, a little side story about Dr. McCullough is he actually took care of me when I came down with COVID. I
Oh,
I was in Dallas for a conference with Dr. McCullough. I was getting ready to fly out and ended up coming down with COVID 2.5 years after the fact. But yeah, he took me to his home. He took care of me and treated me for COVID. So he's absolutely amazing, and he is most certainly my hero. So.
yeah, and he has a big
But
heart.
he
He's a
sure
brilliant,
does.
brilliant mind and a big heart. Yeah,
Yeah, he absolutely does.
yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about, and I think it's amazing that you were questioning. I think anybody who is a scientist, if you weren't questioning what was happening in 2020, then I don't understand that, because science, all of this follow the science, you can't question science. I mean, the very premise of science is a question, right?
Right. It's a process. It's a constant unfolding, a constant activity of inquiry, and it is requiring us to be not only curious, but to have an open mind and yet be skeptical and to adhere to certain principles of what we would call good science. But I think part of what happened was that many medical doctors at the time trusted the Centers for Disease Control, and I trusted them as well prior to 2020. I thought the CDC was a respectable group, but I did not realize that they were captured by the pharmaceutical industry. And many people did not realize that until RFK Jr. started talking about it. Um, I had the honor of talking directly with RFK Jr., with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. in early 2023, personal conversation that really changed my life. I spoke with him for 33 minutes. And then after that, I got so inspired to get more actively involved that I started connecting with a lot of high-level scientists. But 2020, I agree, it was hard to not see the insanity and to not see the um, what seemed to be clearly deceptive behavior on the part of people like Anthony Fauci and certain other individuals. And to be told that even healthy, completely asymptomatic people should be masking in public areas or even outside, and then physical distancing, what they were calling social distancing, which I think was a euphemism to get us to be separate.
Yes.
But those suggestions, followed by the COVID-19 mRNA vaccinations that are really not vaccinations, but they're genetic products. All of that was, um, I think, a process that was carefully orchestrated to get people to conform and to believe in the experts. But for me, one of the turning points that was really critical was I was on an online health show in 2021. The show was about the immune system, and it was about the effects of nutrition and lifestyle on the immune system. And I have a lot of experience writing about that and talking about it. But just before I got on this health show, I was told not to mention the words vaccine or vaccination.
Mm.
And, that kind of thing I could see maybe happening in Russia or China. But to have it happen in the United States and to be told I couldn't even mention the words vaccine or vaccination, I'm not even commenting about, but mention them.
Right.
I asked the health show hosts why that's the case, and they said, well, we'll be shut down if you do that.
Mhm.
Um, and then I witnessed all these respectable scientists being censored on YouTube, and every time I got onto Facebook, I was being slapped with a CDC message immediately. I mean, within seconds. And then other social media platforms, became very hostile. And with all the suppression and the deplatforming and people losing their jobs. I mean, we had 30,000 physicians or healthcare professionals in New York alone losing their jobs because they refused to get the shots.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just an unbelievable time. And frankly, I'm amazed that we didn't have much more of a public reaction, that it was really a minority of people who responded. But I still think to this day that many on the left in particular, many Democrats were completely unaware of the censorship and suppression that was happening because the media has been so artfully constrained and manipulated by these, predominantly by the pharmaceutical industry, to control so much of the narrative. And so when our paper got unethically retracted, we had a paper come out called Lessons Learned, which Dr. McCullough and I co-authored along with several other very reputable scientists. And when that was retracted from the journal Curious, um, that was 30 days after publication. And the paper had gone through 2.5 months of intensive review, peer review process with 8 expert reviewers and several editors. So it went through the whole process that you need to have completed for a good scientific paper. And yet it was retracted 30 days after, and this was with 330,000 downloads that had happened during that
Wow.
time. And the average paper in that same journal, Curious, had it was around 2,100, close to 2,200, 2,200 downloads in a year. But
Oh,
we had
wow.
330,000 in 30 days. So, in a lot of ways, in retrospect, the paper was too successful. It got too much attention. And we know now that the pharmaceutical company pressured the editors and the publisher to have it retracted.
Yeah, I mean, good information was really, really difficult to come by during that time. And I can remember, I was an ICU nurse in 2020. I was working, I was working and caring for COVID patients at that time. I, much like you, I had trusted these institutions, the CDC, the FDA. I really never thought much about even regular vaccines. I always just, figured that those people were doing, their due diligence to check for safety and things of that nature. But when the mRNA vaccines rolled out, to me, it just seemed a little bit like, hey, maybe we should pause a little bit. This is all happening really quickly. And so that's why I didn't even think anything nefarious was going on in the very beginning. But I just thought, a pause might be in order. But
Hmm.
more and more, I would start to see, that all of these policies that we have adhered to for years and years in healthcare were just kind of simply thrown out the window when COVID came. For example, they have us wearing the same N95 mask all over the hospital, in our COVID patient room to our non-COVID patient room. Like, none of that made any sense to me. Looking at the remdesivir that we know is murdering patients
Hmm.
during COVID. So all of those things really started me on the, down the rabbit hole, and I've not come back up for air since, I don't think.
Yeah, yeah. Another one that was interesting is I know two nurses who went all around North Carolina and Virginia. At the time, I was in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, when the pandemic started. Um, and they were checking on these reports of hospitals being overrun. And every hospital they went to, they found that the hospitals were quiet. There was no evidence at all of, things being out of control. There were some hospitals that did get overrun in some areas, but everyone that they checked did was not confirming the media reports. And so I think there was a lot of exaggeration, a lot of fear-based communication that kept people from really, you know, calmly responding to the situation, calmly and rationally. Because when you have fear uh, whipped up, it leads to a lot of irrational decision making, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. And my biggest question, was why, the only place anybody was dying was in the hospitals, right?
Yeah,
We didn't see anybody. We weren't pulling bodies off of the streets. We weren't pulling bodies from homes. The only place anyone was dying was in the hospitals. And the reason why is because they were not dying of COVID. They were dying of the complete and total medical mismanagement of
yeah,
COVID, the
yeah,
remdesivir, the ventilator,
yeah,
death protocols,
yeah.
period.
And then not allowing access to early treatments that
Yes.
were completely effective. That really got my dander up.
Yes,
Uh,
exactly. Same.
yeah, Dr. McCullough's book, Courage to Face COVID, is really focused on that issue, and it really is. It's so tragic and it's really criminal that these people were told, wait until your situation is really bad, then go to the hospital,
Mhm.
then
Wait till
get
you're a prime candidate for a ventilator. That's what
right.
that's what it was all about.
For mismanagement, which
Yes.
is like unbelievable. But yeah, the nurses I have so much respect for, and what you all went through is really quite profound. Um, do you want to talk a little bit about the COVID index?
I do, absolutely. That's why we are here. So the
Okay.
information, again, like I was saying, the information that we was really difficult to come by because of all of the censorship. So I really love that Children's Health Defense has this new initiative that they have been working so hard with, work so hard on, the COVID index. It's a searchable database. Is that correct? Where we can go in there and look at all of this information that has been suppressed for years
That's
now?
right. That's right. It's a very powerful, easily searchable database. It contains more than, I believe at this time, it's well over 2,000 studies, articles, videos, all kinds of interesting documents that really, many of which were suppressed or censored. And it just helps us see so clearly the false narrative that we were all forced to deal with during that time. Um, so it includes a lot of peer-reviewed research on vaccine injuries, on the harms of the lockdowns, and it even includes some investigative journalism pieces exposing the corruption of the pharmaceutical and the government institutions. So it's really kind of it's a living record, of the so-called science that much of which wasn't really settled at all. It was simply silenced or suppressed. And I think that it's a really valuable record because as even today, as the truth continues to surface in courts and legislative hearings. The U.S. Senate, Ron Johnson has had some really wonderful hearings on these issues. And in other public venues, like in Europe, there's still a lot that's coming to light. I think the COVID index is a really credible source, to help reference all of this amazing evidence that refutes the official COVID narrative. And I keep using that word narrative because we were fed a story. People were fed a story that many, many people still believe. Many people still believe that the COVID shots, the COVID mRNA injections or vaccinations were effective and safe. And so, the evidence that we present in the COVID index is really helping people see that that's really a false perception. Um, so an invaluable resource. I think it's also it's helpful for attorneys, who are fighting for people who were vaccine injured or who people who lost their jobs unfairly, and also for medical professionals and journalists, and of course everyday people who may have forgotten what actually happened or may just have misunderstood what happened. So it's a really great tool, and I hope many people will use it.
Yeah, and I think one of the most contentious issues that has really been distinguishing long COVID from post-vaccine syndromes.
Yeah,
And that's a lot of people are just, they don't want to admit maybe that they've been vaccine injured. I think a lot of what we're seeing or hearing about long COVID is actually vaccine injury,
right.
considering the amount of the population that has been vaccinated. What type of insights has the index provided on being able to make that distinction?
Well, I mean, I just completed a paper that will go in the index as an example of what you're talking about. The spike protein, which is one of the key factors that's involved in the toxicity of not only the COVID shots, but also the COVID infection. When you have, let's say, exposure to SARS-CoV-2, the virus, or more recently Omicron, and then you develop an infection. If you're subsequently exposed to the vaccine or had been previously exposed to the mRNA vaccine, your chances of having a much worse long-term outcome are much greater. And so we address that in a paper that is featured in the COVID index. Right now, it's a preprint, but the paper was just accepted by the official journal of the European Society of Medicine. And so that will go in the COVID index and will show people that, yeah, many cases of long COVID were greatly exacerbated by the shots, by the mRNA shots, or actually amplified to the point where people became disabled and they would not have without the shots. And ironically, the industry or the biopharma complex, as Dr. McCullough calls it, uh, that narrative, the narrative we've been fed has been that long COVID is actually reduced by getting the mRNA shots. So it's
Right.
and we've been told that over again that your chances. This was sold early on in 2021. That story was sold to the general public, and a lot of young people went ahead to get the shots because they didn't want to get long COVID and they were thinking that would actually help. But we now know that that was completely false, and the opposite was true. And so many. I mean, I think the most profound truth that still to this day, when I share it with people who did not realize what was actually going on, and I tell this to them, they're still in such disbelief. They cannot get their minds around this, that the mRNA shots were actually creating a lot more COVID and a lot more COVID, not only in terms of the incidence of COVID, but the severity of COVID was greatly amplified by the mRNA shots.
They
And
were, but they weren't counted as vaccinated because if you remember, you had to be 2 weeks post your second mRNA shot before you were considered vaccinated. So every case of COVID that came out, so what happens, people go in, they get their shot, they get COVID in spite of that or because of it. And then they're still documented as unvaccinated because they weren't 2 weeks post their second shot.
yeah, and that's a great example of, the flawed research methodologies or the flawed policy, of the CDC of calling something vaccinated versus unvaccinated. As you said, you could get two shots and then have the adverse effects right up until 2 weeks after the second shot. Up until that time, you were unvaccinated, as you said. So
Exactly.
myocarditis and neurological problems, autoimmune problems, all of that would be classified as unvaccinated. Um, but when you look at some of the better done studies, like the Cleveland Clinic studies, where they showed that with each additional shot, you get more COVID, you get a higher incidence of COVID. And that was actually replicated in Japan. Japan, they did another study that showed this. And I, I'll never forget one time I was sitting at the kitchen table visiting my mother, and my mother's very intuitive. She understood all of this in a way before many scientists did. She resisted getting the shots, but unfortunately was forced into it.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say why or how that happened because it's too personal, um, but one of my other family members was at the kitchen table, and I had the graphs showing that with each shot, you get more COVID. And this is in peer reviewed published research. And that family member could not even look at the charts because it was too jarring, to realize that they had gotten the shots, they had, you know, pushed others to get the shots, and then to see the actual evidence so clear. Um, that's one of the fascinating things about all of this, and I hope that the COVID index will help pull us out of this echo chamber, that
Yeah.
we're in right now, where so many people are still in the dark about what actually happened. And I hope the COVID index will serve to help change that. I'm sorry, I'm getting a phone call here. Let me
No,
turn off
you're
my
fine.
phone. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's it's so important that we do get out of our echo chambers and we start that there's information that is going to be available that people can that have been kind of naysayers from the beginning when we've been trying to present this data and they're like, well, that's not the narrative. But if people would just have access to this information and realize that it just makes sense, like you said, people who are getting vaccines. Now, I don't even know how many boosters are up to 9, 10, 14. I don't know. But all of these people that have been vaxxed and boosted, they are getting COVID over and over again. I've had COVID. I'm not vaccinated. I've had COVID one time. I've never had it again.
Hmm.
How do we reconcile that? The more you get vaccinated, we're destroying immune systems. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. We are destroying immune systems, and it's it's very concerning too that the so many of the shots have been contaminated with the DNA impurities from the manufacturing process, which could result in cancer and autoimmune disease down the road. So that's a very and we already are seeing more cancer and more aggressive cancer in relation to these shots. Um, One of the things that's also kind of hard to get our minds around is the fact that, the emergency use authorization for these shots, which was granted in December of 2020, that wasn't lifted for the entire population until the summer of 2025. I mean, that's just kind of mind-boggling to realize that for kids in America, up to 11 years of age, the emergency use authorization was still in place right up until this past summer. And so you had these genetic vaccines from Pfizer and Moderna being injected into kids routinely uh, under the emergency use authorization. But the EUA, the emergency use authorization, is supposed to be granted only under a public health emergency when the benefits outweigh the risks
Right.
and when there are no other alternatives. So, how is it even possible that we had the emergency use authorization right up until this past summer? It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Um, and these kids had zero chance of dying from COVID-19. Healthy children had zero chance. And yet they were being injected with these genetic products. They were developing heart damage, which I've written about extensively, which is in the COVID index as well.
Mhm.
And, you know, so the risk benefit assessment was so clear, zero chance of dying from COVID, and yet a substantial, close to 3% chance of developing a permanent heart damage in
Yeah.
the form of myocarditis. Um, it's strange because the World Health Organization declared an end to the emergency in 2023. So why did we still have the EUA right up until this past summer? That has to be due to the biopharma complex and the extreme power that they have even up until very recently. Um, so it's a very strange thing, but I can tell you that COVID-19 is still very much with us if you listen to the WHO, because they continue to say that, many countries are dealing with hospitalizations of lots of cases and lots of deaths. And so they're using that to tell people to keep getting vaccinated. And the irony is, as you and I both know, that the reason we continue to see millions of new cases and thousands of deaths is that they are being perpetuated by these mRNA vaccines.
100%.
And because of the immune dysfunction that you just alluded to, and a lot of that is autoimmune reactions, but then you have blood clotting and heart inflammation and strokes. And now we see great data, scary data showing, how dangerous they are to the kidneys, which we've known about since 2021, but kidney failure resulting from these shots.
Yeah, that and the remdesivir causing all of the kidney and multi-organ dysfunction. That's what everybody was dying from in the
Yes.
hospital.
Yes.
Definitely on COVID. But
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. And that was something that many people were oblivious to as well. And if you had a death from the remdesivir, it was often attributed to COVID-19. People did not, they were told, oh, that was another COVID death.
yeah,
And as we know, it was remdesivir, and it was also causing myocarditis at the same time. So if you survived it, you would come out with myocarditis and you were told, well, your COVID caused myocarditis. It's just like the levels of deception were just on.
gaslighting, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It is
Well,
fascinating.
we're up against a hard break, but when we come back, we're going to talk more about this and dig a little bit deeper into the COVID index.
Excellent. Okay.
America Out Loud Talk Radio plays on the iHeartRadio network. You can also listen on our media player from any web browser, anywhere in the world. We have the best in-class apps available on Apple, Android, or Alexa, 24/7, great talk radio. All of our shows go to podcast the following day. You can hear them on apps such as Spotify, Stitcher, Pandora, iHeart Podcast, and many more. Be sure to subscribe and rate the show on Apple Podcasts for me. Don't forget to check out our online store at americaoutloud.shop, where you can find all of the products that we represent on our network at a discounted rate, including an incredible line of products from Chemical Free Body. Unlike the majority of supplements you'll find on the market today, with Chemical Free Body, you won't have to worry about harmful ingredients, binders, fillers, or flow agents. Their ultra-safe breakthrough nanosilver technology destroys pathogens, balances the microbiome, and boosts immunity. All of these products are proudly made in the USA and are backed by an unheard of double your money back guarantee. I've made a twice daily Green 85 drink part of my routine, which has led to a decrease in belly bloat and an increase in my energy throughout the day. Use promo code OUTLOUD to save 20% off the Healthy Gut Bundle. I'll catch you on the other side of this break. Stay with us.
In just 2 minutes per day, you can reclaim your health and vitality and cut your grocery bill in half with one simple, convenient product. Our doctor-formulated Green 85 juice formula's powerful dose of ultra-concentrated essential nutrients stops hunger in its tracks and supplies your cells with what's missing in the grocery store food. It's packed with wheatgrass, chlorella, dandelion, moringa, spirulina, broccoli sprouts, acai berry, beetroot, probiotics, enzymes, vitamins A, D, K, B12, just to name a few. Go to chemicalfreebody.com/outloud today. Get nature's super multivitamin Green 85, empower your immune system, cut down on your grocery bill, and save 20% on your first order.
Have you been looking for a healthy snack for on the go, but all the energy and protein bars are just too sweet and full of sugar, preservatives, and mystery ingredients? Well, not all energy bars are soft and sugary. Bear Bars are a crunchy, savory bar made from just 6 simple, natural ingredients. They're plant-based, organic, packed with protein and nutrients, and are low-temp dried for a unique crunch. Most energy bars are based on chocolate or fruit and are held together with syrups and sweeteners, but Bear Bars are a delicious combination of veggies, nuts, and seeds. They're a perfect fast snack for hikes, workouts, and busy moms and dads. To learn more, just visit bearbar.com/outloud and get the exclusive discount just for America Out Loud listeners. That's BEARBAR.com/outloud.
We wouldn't go a day without washing our hands, brushing our teeth, and washing our nose. Whoa, wait, we wash our nose? Yes, the number one place where bacteria, viruses, and pollen enter the body is through the nose. So the average person breathes over 23,000 times a day. That's 23,000 opportunities for bacteria, viruses, and irritants to get into your nose and make you sick. For an extra layer of protection, wash your nose with Xlear. That is Xlear, Xlear. Xlear's drug-free nasal spray features xylitol, an ingredient proven to block adhesion of many nasty bacteria and viruses and effectively clean, not just rinse like a saline, but wash your nose. Xlear nasal spray quickly alleviates congestion, opens your airway, and ensures your body's natural defenses are strong. Read the research studies for yourself at Xlear.com. That's Xlear.com. Protect yourself from the pathogens and junk you breathe. Pick up a bottle for you and your family today.
Are you eating like your health depends on it? Because it does. Most of the beef in grocery stores today come from industrial feedlots where animals are pumped with hormones, vaccines, and now even experimental mRNA technology. You won't see it on the label, but it's there. Wellness Farms, eat like your health depends on it. 100% grass-fed, grass-finished beef from regenerative American family farms. Our cattle roam on wide-open pastures, eating only natural grasses, never touched by mRNA shots, never given growth hormones, and never injected with unnecessary vaccines. Just clean, nutrient-dense beef, the way nature intended. Every cut is hand-selected, processed by trusted butchers, and shipped directly from the farm to your door. No middlemen. Order now at twc.health/outloud and use code OUTLOUD to get your exclusive 20% off for AOL listeners. Wellness Farms. Eat like your health depends on it.
I'm Doug Evans, author of The Sprout Book. I want to share something that's powerful. You can grow your own food right on your kitchen countertop. Sprouting is an ancient method that turns ordinary seeds into living vegetables in just 3 to 5 days. No soil, no sunshine, no fertilizer. Just seeds, water. For under $1 a serving, you can grow nutrient-dense packed greens anywhere. City apartments, dorm rooms, off-the-grid cabins. In a time when food prices are rising, sprouting gives you control, abundance, and peace of mind. Join the self-reliance revolution. Go to thesproutingcompany.com/outloud and use the code OUTLOUD for an exclusive offer.
Hi, I'm Dr. James Bragman, board-certified DO in internal and geriatric medicine. Maintaining nasal hygiene is crucial for good health. The nose is where most illnesses start. You wash your hands, you brush your teeth. Shouldn't we clean our nose? Use Cofex RX Nasal Cleanse Daily with povidone iodine, vitamin D3, and xylitol to cleanse away germs, bacteria, and allergens. Every nose knows Cofex RX keeps you healthy and allows you to breathe with confidence. Click on the Cofix RX banner ad in the American Out Loud shop for 20% off your next order of Cofix RX.
And I quote, "You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We will preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth. Or we will sentence them to take the first step into 1,000 years of darkness." Well, those are the words of number 40, Ronald Reagan. Shine bright as America approaches 250 years. AmericaOutloud.news is that place to awaken your heart, soul, and mind to the out loud truth.
Welcome back to Nurses Out Loud on America Out Loud Talk Radio. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton. Wherever you're listening from today and whatever you're doing, I thank you for giving me the gift of your time. Be sure to make AmericaOutloud.news your daily stop for all the latest news and happenings. We all must do our part and share the stories, the articles, the podcasts, and videos so we can help secure America's future. If you're just joining us, I've been digging into the newly launched COVID Index with Dr. Nathaniel Mead. Let's jump right back in. Dr. Mead, thank you again for being here and for just introducing us to this incredible resource that we have in the COVID Index.
Well, thank you. I'm excited about it as well. It's a great resource. I think it will help ensure that the truth remains accessible and undeniable for many years to come. So it's a really important record of what happened.
It truly is. And we've been talking a lot about what happened in 2020, all of the lies and the deception and everything that was ultimately pushed on us, the narrative that was pushed. Clearly, we know now to perpetuate these vaccines and get these vaccines out there. That's why early treatment was suppressed, because we can't have an emergency use authorization if there's an alternative treatment available. So that's why we saw the suppression of the early treatment, so that they could move forward with these vaccines, which we clearly know have done tremendous harm to people. My line in the sand was when they came after the children.
Yes.
That was it for me. I had left my job. I had resigned from my job as an ICU nurse because they were, as I mentioned before, murdering my patients. Have not found a nice way to say that. Murdering my patients for profit. I walked away from my job. I started working from home doing telephone triage nursing. And, I thought that would be a good alternative for me for a while. It was. But then I start becoming uncomfortable because they want me to recommend the COVID vaccine for children. And then not only that, they wanted me to call it safe and effective. They literally gave us a scripted answer for that question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was the line in the sand, and I resigned from that job as well. I can't do this. There's just absolutely no way. I mean, the fact that we are even talking about giving children who, again, are at negligible risk,
Right.
no safety data.
Right.
I mean, it was just, it should be criminal, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the reason that they got away with this for so long and continue, I think, to get away with it is there were all these messages that were completely false, like about myocarditis, the inflammatory heart damage to these kids as one example. I mean, there were many other examples. But the myocarditis, they were telling people, first of all, it's very, very rare, that kids will develop it. And the reason they got away with that is because the studies they used were these large passive surveillance studies where they were not even monitoring heart function. And so many of these kids, the cases are subclinical. They're not showing any signs. Then the other things that they were saying is that this is very transient and mild, that you have a very brief little pain in your chest. Don't worry about it. It'll pass. Mm-hmm. It's not a problem. There's no long-term implications. It's a brief, mild event, and not to worry. Never telling these kids or the young people, the young men in particular, although many young women also suffered from it, never telling them that, that these effects could be permanent and could result in congestive heart failure and premature death, decades down the road, or even much sooner than that. in people who were perfectly healthy and had no risk of developing these problems at all. So there were many messages that were fed to the public that the COVID index addresses very clearly. And I think the tragedy is that so many people will suffer for many years from the neurological, autoimmune, and cardiovascular problems that, you and I have just talked about with regard to long COVID, um, much of which is actually post-vaccine syndromes. And that these long-term problems, I think, need to be a reminder to the general public and the medical community uh, that many experts, many health officials, many doctors were all duped back in 2020 and then through the years that followed because of a massive disinformation campaign, which was, initially, I don't know if you remember, it was called the infodemic. Do you remember that?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that infodemic initially was just about too much information. But once the vaccines rolled out, the infodemic became about misinformation from the standpoint of anybody who questioned the narrative. So they twisted it into a story about misinformation from people like Dr. McCullough, one of the most respected cardiologists on the planet. That infodemic, I, that's really led to so much death and suffering, because of all the ways that people were deceived, much of the deception being driven by conflicts of interest, uh, and you know, government overreach in so many different ways. So it's a very fascinating story, and I'm grateful that Children's Health Defense has really done uh, a lot of work to get the COVID index launched. And it's a wonderful tool for exposing these problems that we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just, I want to echo your sentiment. And in Children's Health Defense, they have been truly amazing. So I really want to just express my gratitude to them. They have, I mean, just not only for creating the resource, this incredibly resource, but they have supported my work and our efforts at Nurse Freedom Network and Remnant Healthcare for years now. They've collaborated with us, sponsored our events, and have amplified our efforts on so many different occasions. So I
Great,
want to just,
great.
I want to just express my gratitude to Children's Health Defense for the incredible work that they do, and just so grateful to them for their support. I know that also they are building a research team as well.
Right. Let's talk
Talk about
about that
that.
for a minute. Yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this time, the people on top, and I'm one of the researchers that's been involved in growing the project. We're ramping up the COVID index, and we're expanding our team of research associates at this time. So we're welcoming people to join the team, and that's a process they can find out about when they go to the website, which is covidindex.science. And we'd also really appreciate your help, everyone who's listening, in spreading the word about the COVID index, because this is such an important resource. And as you and I mentioned, we don't want to be operating in an echo chamber. So, you know, if nobody knows about this website, it's not going to get anywhere. So we really want to get the word out as much as possible. So those are the two things I just want to say. We're building the team. If people want to join, they can do so by going through the website, www.covidindex.science, and then please help us spread the word. I guess one other point is that, myself and others are available for podcast interviews. So, if others listening have access to podcasters who would be interested in bringing me in, I'm happy to do that for them. And we have other great people who could speak as well.
Yeah, I'll definitely be sharing your information with, my network of different podcasters and people that can amplify this message because it truly is so important. And the show notes that will accompany this episode, once it does go to podcast, we'll definitely include the link to the COVID Index, covidindex.science. We will include the link to join the research associate team if you're interested. And I know so many people are really wanting to get involved in this fight and do what they can. And this is a really great opportunity to become a part of this is a part of living history where we can get this information out there to the masses. And that's what needs to happen so that we can avoid a repeat of 2020, because in my estimation, 2020 was really just a dress rehearsal of what's to come if we don't band together and
Right.
put a stop to it.
And for people to also understand, there's so much work still to be done. Like when you look at PubMed, which is the public database for all the medical and public health research, there are well over 57,000 published papers on PubMed that mention or focus on the COVID-19 mRNA vaccinations, or the COVID-19 vaccinations, I should say, which most of which are the mRNA shots. But 57,000. So we have so much constantly coming in, and it's a lot to organize. So we really do need help, and people should realize that this is a constantly evolving body of knowledge, that we could use some real support. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that my listeners will be more than happy to be joining in on that research associate team. So I would encourage you and employ you to visit the website, share it far and wide. I'm going to also include in the show notes. I did a piece, a blog on the COVID Index, so I'll have you to share that out as well. It includes some great videos from our friend Dr. Brian Hooker, who's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Dr. Hooker. And it gives all of this information on how to join that research team as well. So I'm really, really excited to be able to help amplify this message.
Great. Thank you, Kimberly. Really appreciate that.
You are so welcome. Any last words or anything you want to talk about before we got a couple minutes left? But the time.
Sure. Well, we have a very important paper coming out, and it's on the interaction that you and I alluded to, between the COVID mRNA shots and the infections. And I'm very excited about it. I came up with this idea of this hypothesis which I called the hybrid harms hypothesis. Originally, I was calling the triple spike, related to the 2 shots that you get from the primary series of the vaccination, and then the minimum of a single infection. And the interaction between those is what's perpetuating a lot of what we're still seeing that we call COVID-19. So that's what is the primary focus of the paper, and I think it's going to be very illuminating when it's published, and really, really excited about that. So that'll be coming out very soon. Right now it's as a preprint, but I look forward. There's going to be a lot of attention about this when it comes out on Substack. I encourage people to check out the Substacks, to also go to the McCulloughFund.org, the website for the McCullough Foundation. And you can follow me on X with my X account is Nathan Mead, PhD. So feel free to follow me on X. And of course, I really am grateful to you for your work and everything that you're doing to get the word out. So thank you, Kimberly.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. It's my honor. So one last question before we go, just as far as the COVID index goes beyond the data itself, what does this project symbolize for you in terms of restoring trust and transparency in science? Because I think we're definitely at a crossroads.
I'm sorry, repeat that, please.
Just beyond the data itself, what does this project, the COVID index, symbolize for you in terms of restoring trust and transparency in science?
Well, as you yourself said in a great article you wrote, it's a living archive of truth, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I love that article you wrote, by the way.
Thank you.
So I really think that sums it up beautifully, that if we have an archive that organizes the truth very carefully, that provides order and coherence to it, then we can really continue to advance the conversation and not have it, not have this bizarre era in our recent history disappear. So I think it's really an incredible archive of living archive of truth, as you put it, and um, you know. To think of all the people who were mistreated and ridiculed and suppressed, I really think that this is a way to help revive their voices that were suppressed. So that's one of the really exciting things about the COVID Index. It's a revolutionary resource, and we'll just continue to advance the conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you again so much for being here, for taking the time to share with my listeners about this incredible resource. I will make sure that all of these links that you mentioned during the episode will be included with the show notes that'll accompany this when it goes to podcasts. And we'll look forward to having you back again to talk about your paper when it's ready. We'd love
Wonderful.
somebody.
And the paper is getting published in Medical Research Archives, which is the official journal of the European Society of Medicine. Yeah,
Excellent. You know what? Send me that link over. I'll include that one as well.
I will. I will. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you so
Wonderful.
much.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
And that is all the time that we have for today, friends. But remember, we are here on the air 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern with a different nurse host daily. You can also catch the encore at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please be sure to tune in and listen to myself and these courageous nurses. As we walk you through all of these hot topics, we will empower you with information and education. We will advocate and we will stand in the gap for you because we are nurses and this is what we do. I'm your host, Nurse Kimberly Overton. You can find me here every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Until next time, be safe, be well, and God bless. Remember, we are in a war for truth. We are putting out a bounty on the real misinformation and exposing the purveyors of propaganda. No topic is off limits as we shine our lights and expose the darkness.
It's time